the Oscar for the best film-based pun for a title of a presentation goes to Andy Steer of itelligence.
Thank you very much. Hello everybody, afternoon. Okay, I thought quite hard about what I should talk to you all about this afternoon, I thought hard about what to talk about HANA, because clearly everybody wants to talk about HANA. So what I've tried to do is collect together some thoughts around what else you can do once you've drunk all the Kool-Aid on HANA, and once you've kind of been sheep-dipped, or whatever phrase you want to use around what's happening with HANA. And in that I want to introduce the concepts of the applications that are currently available for HANA, things you can do with it. Okay? So what I wanted to introduce first of all and make really clear is that throughout this session, unfortunately, I'm going to be asking you some questions as well. I'm guessing there might be some hard ones for me at the end, but anytime this little thing appears in the bottom corner of the slide there, that's to remind me that there's a question that I need to ask you. And most of those, as indicated, will just be simple show of hands things. Because whenever you talk to an SAP audience, some people in the room only have business analytics from SAP, some people have SAP business applications as well. So I'll kind of ask now and then for a show of hands so I can hopefully drive some of the relevance a little bit more clearly. So hopefully that's okay for everybody and everyone can join in at relevant points in that. Okay, so I wanted first of all to cover off the things that I'm not going to be talking about, because whenever you come to do a HANA presentation, there's a number of things that people have already talked about and have already covered. Okay, so just to be clear, number one, obviously, I'm not going to be talking about any Woody Allen films. The title of the presentation was just merely if somebody in the office said, oh, Hannah and her daughters, as in the Woody Allen film, so Hannah and her sister. So we're not going to be covering that. I'm not going to be talking hugely about the evolution of BI and data warehousing. So I'm not going to be going over the years that we've been doing it a certain way and how HANA's come along and, hey, isn't that different? I'm not going to be talking about why traditional data warehouses and the indexing strategies and all of that kind of stuff potentially waste space on your hardware, so I'm not going to be spending ages talking about that. I'm not going to be talking about whether it then makes sense to duplicate all of that data into OLAP cubes so that you can then report on it. Not going to be talking about that either. I'm not going to be talking about the failure of enterprise class data warehousing as it's been done up to this date. I'm not going to be talking about spread mart. Who's got spread marts in their business? Yeah, okay. So I'm not going to be talking about why, if you don't give users the data they need when they need it, they'll find a way to get it, full stop. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'm not going to try and come up with yet another definition of what big data is. I think anyone who's at the Gartner event a few weeks ago probably got enough definitions of what big data is. So I'm not going to spend ages on that, and I'm not going to talk about how analysing huge volumes of data requires a paradigm shift and all of these different things. I'm not going to spend ages talking about that, okay? And I'm definitely not going to spend ages talking about how Twitter and Facebook is revolutionising the world and how analytics in real time from Twitter and Facebook is the silver bullet for everything that you possibly do, even though you sell widgets that are manufactured in a shed in Barnsley. Okay, I'm not going to spend ages on that. Okay. I'm not going to go into detail about the differences between column storage and row storage and all of that technical stuff as well in relation to HANA. And the falling cost of memory, and if you've seen these slides before, some of these from Mr. Timo Elliott. I'm not going to talk about how hardware's changing and how that allows us to do different things. Because I think everybody knows basically all of this stuff. Because, frankly, these guys have been talking about it for the past knocking on 2 years. So I'm guessing that everybody who's in the room has seen presentations on all of those things. Some of it during today, with the updates on what's going on with the technology and the general technical proposition of HANA as a platform. Okay? So, quick show of hands in the room. How many of you have seen those presentations and have got a feel for that kind of stuff already? Right, okay. So, the first gamble paid off. The majority of people have seen that stuff. Okay. So, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about 4 very simple, straightforward things. The first one is when you've heard all of that cool stuff and you've seen all those amazing presentations and you've seen people drill down on 500 million rows of data on their iPad, what do you start doing next? What does that mean for you in your organizations? How do you start to translate how you could use HANA in your environment? Because it's not just as simple as going back, sitting down at your desk and saying, we need HANA, and the next week it's there and it's ready for you. There's a bit more besides that. So the easiest way to start that conversation happening is to talk about real applications that are available. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that SAP have been doing to make it easier for you in your organizations to take the first steps with HANA. I'll then not help you build a business case for HANA, but I'll tick off some of the things that we've seen in working with our clients that they're having to address and think about in order to build a business case around HANA. Okay? And then finally, some serious, some fun things to watch out for when you are starting on that journey with HANA. Okay? So, HANA provokes a lot of different reactions in different people, to be honest. How many of you would say that you are extremely positively enthusiastic about the potential for HANA? Okay, huge smile looking at me, an arm straight up in the air. How many of you are kind of very cynical about HANA? Okay, you're in the right room? Okay. How many of you are just generally neutral and waiting to be convinced? Right, okay, cool. So the reality is that when you come to an event like this, you hear a lot of stuff and you see some case studies and you hear a lot of people talking about the possibilities that the solution can deliver to you. But when that settles down and when you've watched all the YouTube videos and you've started to try and form in your mind what you can do next, it's very important to really, I think, get in your own mind, what's your view? And why do you have that view? And if you're yet to make your mind up, what do you need to do in order to make your mind up? And generally for people, that's talking within their organizations about HANA. So clearly, you're here today. You, unless you're an independent or a small business, you're unlikely to make up anywhere near a reasonable proportion of the people who work in your organization. So having seen all the hands come up about the awareness question on HANA, how many of you have had active conversations inside your businesses about HANA? Hands up. Okay, so probably maybe just under half. And is that with your peers following an event, or is that with your boss, or is that with a wider team? Who's spoken to it about somebody much senior in their organisation? Okay, so much, much smaller number. Okay. So the questions that tend to come out is really, okay, so I see this, and I see this is really good, but how's this going to add value to what we do in our organisation? And then pretty soon after that, if we think there's some value, where do we get started, and how do we actually do something with HANA? So the first big question, how many of you have that pretty much as your application landscape within your organizations? So you'd say, we run SAP business applications pretty much full stop. Okay, so I'm guessing the rest of you are in that camp, right? Yeah? Okay, so just as an aside to that, how many of you use business objects tools? Whoa, okay, great, okay. So a lot of people using what I guess we'd kind of use the term agnostic, right? So you're using business objects with non-SAP business applications, yeah? Okay, right. I now get the neutrality thing on HANA because clearly, yeah, there's a different question there. So what I wanted to try and do was address what's available for those two communities, because there is something available and there's a good message for both sets of communities. And I think, interestingly, it's possibly a very strong message for the agnostic community and what you can do with HANA. So we'll come on to that in a little while. But first of all, for those of you who are SAP shops, so how many of you are familiar with the SAP certified solutions for HANA that are available right now? Hands up. Okay. Put your hand, keep your hand up if you don't sell one of those solutions. and you're aware of it. Okay, good, right, okay. It's proliferation, you can't spot them. They don't have to just have like an SAP logo on your forehead if you're... So right now, there are rapid deployment solutions available to solve particular challenges and particular issues through the use and the application of HANA. And they are targeted at existing SAP install base customers. And we'll touch on those in a little bit. And also BW powered by HANA, which I guess was was the big news that came. That was something that was being talked about a lot. But also, in the future, and I just say the future so I don't have to put up one of those like 3-point font safe harbor statements that says this may not happen, this may. In the future, the roadmap is that HANA will power other SAP solutions. So HANA will power BPC. How many of you use BPC? Anybody know? Okay, right. So you'll be able to use HANA underneath BPC. And also, eventually, although interesting by some of the comments that were made this morning about Sybase ASE, but you will also be able to run SAP ERP on HANA as well. So hugely increased transaction throughput capability, maybe even on reduced hardware. But certainly with, with fewer maintenance renewal charges to Oracle or various other people in the mix. So let's touch on rapid deployment solutions. I'm well aware that a mix of the audience is biased away from people who've got the SAP Business App. So I'll walk through these at a reasonable pace. So the objective really here primarily, and I think this is something that's been mentioned probably quite a lot over the last 6 to 12 months or so, is this recognition that SAP business applications are fantastic systems of record, right? Fantastic at recording things that have happened, making sure those things happen in the right sequence, making sure that all that is committed and reliable and available and consistent and all of those great things. But that's just a part of what an organisation needs to be able to do. And the other thing, the systems of engagement, delivering information back out from that to people so they can make decisions and do all those things. Now that's what business analytics, BI, call it whatever you want this month. That's what that's all about doing. And there's a huge opportunity for HANA to promote that. So these are DS solutions. And I've put them into 3 groups. So, again, this is mine and itelligence's view on this. This isn't necessarily the way that, if you go to the SAP website and look for these things, isn't necessarily the way they'll be grouped together. I've grouped them for the way that I want to talk them through. And primarily, they're targeted at different lines of business within the organisation, really, solving different problems. So first of all, we've got some stuff which predominantly solves problems that IT have. And those problems are around the speed and the capability for delivering operational reporting through the organisation. Then we have something for finance, because you always have to have something for finance, otherwise you don't get to take an order for other people in the organisation, because finance want to have something. And the big one here is COPA. So anybody here do COPA reporting in their SAP environment? Okay. I'm sure you started it running yesterday before you set off for the hotel, and you're looking forward to seeing the results when you get back on Thursday. So the ability to accelerate that process using HANA, and then also something very focused on CRM applications. Any SAP CRM users? 1, okay. So the ability to do pipeline analysis, customer segmentation, all of these things on high volume data, much higher speed. So I wanted to just quickly walk through these, and the essence of this is designed to be relatively simple and straightforward. The idea is the data is in your ERP system. You don't need to have BW or another data warehouse in place. You take HANA, it comes with connectors to connect up to your existing ERP data, to replicate that data in real time, if that's what the application warrants, into HANA. You then have content within HANA to add value, and then you have business objects content available as well, which you can utilize very, very quickly to affect change in that area. And that's what the RDS model is about. And there are partners, itelligence included, who are certified for the delivery of these solutions. But the idea is you're going down more of a product-based route for it. So it should be supportable moving forward. You should be able to get it delivered much more quickly. So operational reporting, again, I know you're going to get the slides afterwards, so a lot of what I've put on the slides isn't necessarily to read right now. It's for afterwards so that you can review it. The operational reporting RDS is really just about getting people to that data that they need that much quicker. So real-time replication from your ERP system into HANA, people able to run those operational reports very, very quickly, drill down on detail that previously they wouldn't have been able to do at all. COPA, slightly more interesting because it's more of a business process rather than just reporting. You know, get your reporting run very quickly, look at your allocations, change it, rerun it in real time, all coming through HANA. Big benefit for anybody who currently gets stuck in that process. Anybody here in a finance function within their organisation? Okay, a couple. I think it's the thing with finance processes, and I know that we've just moved to a fast close within our business when we're expected to close month end on day 3. Yeah, thanks. And that's a lot of fun when you're in just like a product sales business, but when you're in a professional services business as well, you've got to collect timesheets and all those kind of things. Doing a 3-day close can be a real hassle, particularly when you're tweaking things, because it's never getting the bulk of the data right. That's okay. It's the little tweaky things. And the ability to utilize HANA to speed all that up, to reprocess, to very quickly look at changes and see what that does is a huge benefit. Hardly any CRM users in the audience, so I won't go into this one in detail. But again, large volumes of data, the ability to segment it in real time, the ability to run campaign and analytics across there, and also the ability to look, something the salesman's worst nightmare, look at a detailed pipeline analysis in real time. So you can scrutinize it up to the second and see what's happening, and forecast maybe more accurately. Those of you running BW, this is the really interesting one, right? And this has caused huge amounts of problems in the market with Oracle bantering back about Exalytics and all of these kind of things. It's all good fun. Right now, there are a lot of people out there running BW, and they're running BW on what you'd recognise as traditional relational database platforms. HANA on BW is huge news. How many BW? Yeah, okay. Huge news. You know, right now, in the last, well, I guess, you know, in the lead up to Christmas, 160 million euros worth of HANA business done by SAP. I don't know the exact percentage, but my understanding is a large chunk of that was around BW activities. And certainly if our experience is anything to go by, I think out of the opportunities we've got at the moment, 3/4 of those are people who are wanting to look at it in direct relation to speeding up their BW environment. Some of those already got BW Accelerator, and that's not quite giving them what they need. But certainly the ability to have BW on HANA is a huge prize for many people. And of course, you know, the ability moving forward within HANA to build in-memory analytic applications within there will only increase that as well. And there's a great case study available on the SAP website around Red Bull and what they did with HANA on BW, and particularly if you like your Formula 1 facts and figures and all of those kind of things. There's some interesting bits and pieces about the Formula 1 team as well. Okay. I'm allowed to put all these logos up, aren't I, Richard? I didn't check with you on this. Right, those of you who don't use SAP. So again, quick show of hands, because it was a decent chunk of people, wasn't it, who don't use SAP business applications. Okay. So most people who've been talking to me about HANA over the last couple of months are starting to talk to me about saying, is this something that's really just for SAP customers? You know, I'm a business objects customer. I don't get it. What does it mean to me? Is this something that I should be looking at? And I think there's a really simple thing here. And you know, it does dumb HANA down slightly, a little bit. But you know, I talked to a customer the other day who was thinking about buying Netezza or Teradata or something like that. And I think you can look at it and you can start a conversation around HANA if you're in that kind of mindset. You know, if you're looking at large volumes of data and you're thinking, you know, my queries, they just don't run fast enough, and my updates that I do through my data warehouse, they're just not quick enough, then really, that's when you can start to think about the benefits that you can get from HANA. And again, we're really talking about solving some of those problems that I said, you know, I wasn't going to harp on about at the beginning of the presentation, about the classic enterprise data warehouse growing pains and the spread mark problems and all of those kind of things. How many of you seen a demo of the Composer tool in HANA, where a business user can access some data and load it into HANA and do it quite easily? Yeah, anybody seen that? Okay. Very impressive. And this is the kind of thing that we're talking about. really changing the way that you traditionally do data warehousing without any other SAP applications involved. Again, I said I wasn't going to spend huge amounts of time talking about the technical details in and out, but I just wanted to put this up because having said think of it like an analytic appliance, it's important to remember that it's a lot more than just that. So it's not just about loading a load of data, storing it and being able to query on it really quickly. It's about those other things that you can do in there with the predictive analytics models in there. Being able to code stuff in R inside the system, being able to make much better use of high-speed responses without having to build loads of aggregates. All of those kind of things are hugely beneficial. So it actually allows you not just to rethink how you do data warehousing, it might allow you to rethink how you do applications within your organization. So for example, the latest release of Business Objects, the Feature Pack 3 that's going to be coming out, actually allows you to put the system database and the auditing database inside HANA. So it's just using it as an operational database just to run. So admittedly, you need to have a pretty big system to need to put your auditing database in there for query response times. But Mr. Shaw, I saw you in the audience with your universe on the Business Objects auditing database. One of the classic challenges there is how long the reports take to run. Matt, for those of you who don't know, Matt Shaw from SAP, great tips and tricks on how to optimize reporting off your audit database. But clearly, if it's sitting in HANA, then a number of those don't necessarily have to worry about anymore because we can get that data out much more quickly. So primarily, if you've got an existing data warehouse in place, and how many of you have got a data warehousing strategy in your organizations? Right, okay. So I won't go into what technology you're using, but if you've got one, then you can just load it into HANA. You don't have to change all your sort of upstream ETL process. You can just replicate that into HANA if you're happy with it and it's working okay. If you haven't, then you can use data services and you can load your data into HANA and you can build your data warehouse in HANA and get the benefits that are associated with that. And again, something which many, many people are talking about at the moment, particularly when you look at the things that you can do with data services like enhanced enrichment of data, so address cleansing, geospatial encoding, all of those kind of things that can really add value beyond what you might have in your existing data warehouse. So, summary on what there is. So right now, the RDSs that we've talked about, BW on HANA, or the HANA-based data mart solution that I just mentioned. And coming soon, some of these in ramp up, some of them on the next release of the products. There's a lot coming through. So, if some of that stuff's making sense to you and you're thinking, okay, what do we do next? And show of hands at the beginning, how many of you have seen HANA and enthusiastic about it? Quite a few hands. How many of you are still to be convinced? Few hands. How many of you have talked in your organizations? Not many hands at all. So there's something stopping you having those conversations. And I think there's some stuff that we talked in the team and we talked to some of the customers who are already implementing HANA, and we talked about what are the things that they were thinking about and that they needed to spend time discussing internally. So I'm not going to do the death by PowerPoint and the presenter's number one mistake of reading out all his bullet points live in front of the audience. I can let you read, but the point is you get them to take away afterwards. But the important thing is that you need to think carefully about what you're going to do with this. Because guess what? It's not free. Don't implement it in a day. It is, in certain situations, in quotes, non-disruptive, but that doesn't mean that people don't have to be involved and do stuff. So there are a lot of things to think about. And some of those, for example, like how much data have you got, are pretty fundamental to the choices that you make. But also, hopefully, from this little session now, one of the questions that might be in your mind that wasn't before is, do one of the off-the-shelf solutions address the thing that I think I need to do within my organisation? So, stuff to watch out for. And so I've seen this in customers, and I've also seen it in our team, and I've also seen it in some of our friends from SAP. It can be very dangerous to be too enthusiastic about something. So it's very important to consider and think carefully, because there's some good news in there. And there are some things that are useful in your organisation. And for most businesses, there's a phenomenal business case to be made for the introduction of HANA. But if you just go back and start shouting at people and saying, oh, in memory, oh, column, oh, amazing, it's not going to go anywhere. So you've got to watch out for that. Revolutions for revolution's sake are never a good thing either. So, you know, it's the new thing, the magpie syndrome. It's shiny, it's new, it's great, we've got to have it. It's so much better than that other thing that we have been using for the last 10 years and actually doesn't have any real problems with it. You've got to be very careful about the way you package these things up. And it does a lot of stuff, and it does a lot of stuff really good, but it doesn't do everything. And it can't do everything. And it can't be the kind of the panacea for everything. So just kind of, you know, by all means drink all the Kool-Aid, but kind of have some water with it every now and then as well, because you've got to keep a dose of reality into the situation when you're looking at the applications for HANA within your organisation. Because in reality, if you're enthusiastic about it and you think it can help your business, you need the old boring things. You need a solid, consistent business case that people will get on board with. You don't need a maniac running around the building wearing an I Love HANA t-shirt looking for people to get on board. That's not the way to do it. Okay, so, yes, it's revolutionary. And you've seen the demonstrations, and you've seen the presentations, and you've heard people talking about the things that it can do, and you've heard about the indexing strategies and the compression rates and all of these things. There's a wealth of information out there, phenomenal amount on the various SAP channels. Soak them up, read them, understand them. When you've done that, you could be forgiven for thinking it's all a bit complicated because there's a lot of stuff to read. So focus back on the things that are there to help you understand it, things that are there to help you get it implemented more quickly. So the RDSs, for example, and the data marts and warehouses. And when it comes down to it, there are some great, solid, tangible reasons for considering HANA within your organisation, within your group that you work in, wherever it may be. But you've got to be able to explain them clearly and consistently to people. Otherwise, nobody's going to be interested. Okay, so that's pretty much... Oh, sorry, one more thing. One thing to bear in mind with this stuff is it can be a lot easier if you can see it and touch it. Okay, so the thought that I wanted to leave you with was hosted test drives for HANA. Any of the workloads that we've talked about, the RDSs, the data warehouses, BW on HANA, one of the easiest ways to build a business case internally is to see how it will work and see what it will do. So if you want to know more, come and grab me or come and grab the guys on the stand. If you've got an offer running where we're doing hosted HANA POCs, and we have got enough hardware to run more than one at a time. But I'd be more than happy to talk to any of you who may be interested in talking about that. And that's it. Thank you very much.